There was a black envelope sitting on my kitchen table. No return address. No stamp. Just my name, handwritten in perfect block letters. David Rutherford. I had never seen that handwriting before in my life. But somehow, I knew exactly who it was from. Or at least, who had sent it. I didn't open it right away. Instead, I stared at it for 37 minutes. I counted. I stood in my sweatpants with a mug of coffee gone cold, as a breeze from the half-open back door made the envelope twitch every few seconds, like it was breathing. This was 3 days after the funeral. 3 days after the marble box with Clinton Barrow's initials was lowered into the ground, and 3 days after my wife, ex-wife, served me with the ugliest divorce papers I've ever seen. And yes, I've Googled some. She didn't even wait a week after her father died. Didn't cry. Didn't hug me. Just handed me a thick yellow folder with a casual, "You'll want to sign these fast. Trust me." No explanation. No warning. No, we need to talk. Just divorce. The next day, she moved out. The day after that, she posted a photo from a rooftop restaurant in Monaco with some guy named Lars. No tags, no captions, just 2 espresso martinis and the corner of her unmistakable platinum purse. And now, on day 3 of my very loud heartbreak, this mysterious black envelope appeared on my kitchen table like a warning shot. I finally opened it at 11:42 p.m. I remember the time because it felt like I was doing something illegal. Inside was a single sheet of ivory paper. Heavy. Expensive. It smelled faintly like cedar and smoke. And it said, "David, if you are reading this, then my daughter has already done what I suspected she might. Please meet me at 11 a.m. tomorrow at the address listed below." Yes, me. Don't tell anyone. Especially not her. CB. I read it again. And again. Yes, me. But Clinton Barrow was dead. I was at the funeral. I helped carry the damn casket. There was a granite urn, for God's sake. But I didn't sleep that night. My hands were shaking. My legs kept bouncing. And even though my rational brain screamed this is a prank, I showed up at the address. It was a law office in a building so old the elevator buttons had cigarette burns. And there, sitting in a cold gray room with no windows, was a man I'd never seen before, in a brown corduroy suit and dusty glasses, who handed me a second envelope. This one had a wax seal. Same initials, CB. Inside was a letter, a voice recording, a single USB stick, and 3 words. She tricked us. I didn't even wait to get home. I listened to the recording in the parking lot, sitting in my car with the USB jammed into an adapter I keep for DJ gigs I barely get anymore. There was no label, just a single file named, "If you're still with her, you're already lost." MP3. Charming title. I hit play. At first, it was just the static hum of an old microphone. Then his voice. Clinton Barrow. Dead for 3 days. Speaking like he'd just stepped out for a coffee. "David, I assume by now you've been blindsided." His voice was quieter than I remembered. Slower. Not the thundering billionaire bark he used at family dinners or board meetings. This voice sounded like a man dragging himself toward the end of a very long, very calculated chess game. If she's already filed the papers, then I was right. I always suspected my daughter would become her mother in the end. And if that's the case, then I have a few things to tell you. Things I couldn't say while I was alive. I paused the file and sat back, heart racing. My hands were slick on the steering wheel. I looked around the lot. Empty. Just pigeons hopping across the lines and a security guard leaning on his phone. I hit play again. "You know, I never liked you. Let's start there. You were soft. Overly sentimental. An easy target. I didn't think she'd marry you. I thought maybe you were her phase. But then you stayed. You held on. That's when I started to notice something strange. She didn't push you away. She let you in. That meant you were useful. And in my family, being useful is dangerous. David, listen to me. You don't know her. Not really. Darcy is not who she told you she is. Her inheritance, all $379 million of it, is contingent. And she knows that. Or, she thinks she does." My stomach dropped. I paused the file again and whispered out loud. "Contingent on what?" I felt ridiculous talking to no one, but I couldn't stop. I was unraveling. I pressed play. When she was 16, I caught her doing something unforgivable. I won't say it here. It's sealed. But it involved someone who disappeared. The inheritance? It was always bait. And the moment she touched it, she triggered everything. She doesn't know that the final clause in my will wasn't read to her. It was sent to you. I blinked. My throat tightened. Yes, you. My spineless, teary-eyed, sentimental son-in-law. Because you were the only one stupid enough to stay loyal. That made you honest. And honesty is what I need now. That USB drive contains the key to what Darcy never wanted anyone to find. A file she deleted. Or thought she did. Find it. Open it. And whatever you do, don't call her. The file ended there. No music. No goodbye. Just silence. I sat in the car for a full 5 minutes. Heart racing. Palms sweating. Mind spinning. She had tricked me. That much I already knew. But this? This was something else. Something deeper. The kind of betrayal that doesn't just ruin a marriage. It rewrites an entire reality. I looked at the second item in the envelope. A key. Small, old brass. No tag. Just a number etched into the top. Hashtag E47. I didn't know what it meant yet. But I knew one thing. Darcy wasn't just celebrating her inheritance. She was celebrating getting away with something. And suddenly, I wasn't just a heartbroken ex-husband anymore. I was the last piece on her father's twisted game board. I didn't go home that night. I couldn't. Every inch of that place smelled like her perfume, her candles, her betrayal. So instead, I sat in a 24-hour diner, stirring cold eggs and not eating them, obsessing over a brass key and a man who was supposed to be in the ground. The key said hashtag E47. No brand, no address. Just that. I tried Googling it, reverse image searching it, even called a locksmith buddy from high school at 2:17 in the morning. He asked me if I was drunk. I said I wished I was. When the sun came up, I still hadn't slept. But I had one idea. Clinton owned properties. Hundreds. All over the state. Condos, industrial units. Even an old textile mill that Darcy once tried to convert into a wedding venue for someone else's wedding. Don't ask. So I started digging through public records. I pretended to be someone from a title insurance company, calling county offices, asking if any buildings still had mechanical locks instead of digital. That narrowed it down to 13. Of those, only 2 had elevator floors labeled with letter number combos, like E47. One of them was a decommissioned psychiatric hospital in upstate New York. The other was a storage/residential hybrid building Clinton quietly bought in 2009 under a shell company. On paper, it had no tenants, no utilities, no maintenance logs, just an address, 83 Halworth Lane, Building E. That had to be it. I drove there on no sleep, fueled by vending machine coffee and sheer confusion. The building was nothing special. Brown brick, steel doors, a buzzer panel with worn-out buttons. No concierge, no cameras, just silence and the hum of electrical boxes. I walked up to the elevator, hesitated, then hit the button for E. It lit up. I don't know why that surprised me, but it did. I rode up in silence. No music, just the metal groaning. The doors opened to a narrow hallway with concrete walls, painted once long ago in a shade of green that now looked more like ash. There were only 3 doors. One of them had hashtag E47 stamped into the metal frame with an old label maker. My heart was pounding. Not racing, pounding. I reached into my pocket and held the brass key. It was suddenly slick in my hand. I pushed it into the lock. It turned with a soft click. Inside, the lights flickered on automatically. The air smelled stale, but not dirty. The room wasn't dusty. It wasn't abandoned. Someone, recently, had been here. And then I saw the photos. Hundreds of them. On the walls. On the desk. Spread across filing cabinets. Taped to the ceiling. All of Darcy. But not the Darcy I knew. Some of the photos were black and white surveillance shots. Some were color, grainy, taken from across streets. Others looked intimate. From inside hotel rooms. From parties I was never invited to. From places she told me she never went back to. One photo stopped me cold. It was her. With Clinton. And someone else, a man I didn't recognize, but who looked exactly like Darcy in the face. Same nose. Same chin. Same cold smile. There was no label. No name. Just a sticky note beneath it that read, Phase 2. Terminate after will is triggered. I stumbled back, knocking over a lamp. A stack of papers spilled out from the drawers. More notes. Receipts. Wire transfers. Medical records. And then I saw it. A second will. Stamped. Signed. Clinton's signature. Dated 4 days before he died. And at the bottom, in legal print so small I had to squint. Final contingency. Inheritance is void if subject is under investigation for prior federal offense sealed under juvenile jurisdiction. Case file 08 J 9372. I had no idea what that meant, but I knew someone who might. I grabbed everything I could carry, photos, documents, the second will, shoved it into a torn duffel bag I found under the desk, and got out of there fast. As I reached the stairwell, my phone buzzed. Darcy. First time she'd called since Monaco. I didn't answer. 30 seconds later, a text lit up my screen. Where are you? You shouldn't be in that building. I sat in my car gripping the steering wheel so tight, my knuckles turned white. The text from Darcy glared back at me on the cracked phone screen. Where are you? You shouldn't be in that building. I hadn't told a soul where I went. No GPS, no social media check-in, not even a Google search on my own phone. And yet, she knew. Which meant someone was watching me. Had been watching me. Maybe since before Clinton died. It took me 5 tries to start the engine because my hands were shaking so bad. I didn't go home. I drove in circles for nearly an hour before pulling into the back lot of a shuttered movie theater and parking behind a dumpster. That's where I opened the duffel bag and started going through what I'd taken, not just flipping through papers, but really reading them. And that's when the story started to unspool in ways I couldn't have imagined. The sealed juvenile file mentioned in Clinton's second will, Case 08 J 9372, kept appearing in his notes. Most of the documents were full of redactions, whole pages blacked out, but some fragments leaked through. The file referenced a missing boy. Last seen 2008. Name withheld due to age. Location, Crowbridge Lake, Connecticut. That was 30 minutes from where Darcy grew up. One memo caught my eye. It was printed on old fax paper, barely legible. Subject was present at lake. Interviewed by Child Services. Behavior erratic. No remorse observed. Recommend suppression of incident to protect family reputation. That line hit me like a punch to the throat. No remorse observed. There was another photo, too. One I hadn't noticed at first. It was folded and tucked between manila folders. When I opened it, I recognized Darcy instantly. Younger, maybe 16, standing near the edge of a dock. Her expression wasn't grief, wasn't fear. It was satisfaction. Behind her, blurry in the background, were flashing red and blue lights. A rescue boat. And a stretcher. I had known Darcy for nearly 10 years, and I had never once heard her mention a lake. Not childhood summers. Not vacations. Not even passing mentions of swimming lessons. It was like that entire place had been erased from her memory, or at least from the version of her memory she allowed me to see. I found a receipt next, dated 3 weeks before Clinton's death. He had paid a private data firm to recover deleted laptop files. The invoice mentioned success. Recovered 2 gigabytes from encrypted trash sector. Client confirms Darcy archive match. Darcy's laptop. Something she thought was gone. Something he had seen. And maybe something he used to draft that second will. The one that nullified her inheritance if she had a sealed juvenile case on file. Which, if everything I had just read was true, she definitely did. I was halfway through piecing it all together when the light in my rearview mirror changed. Someone was behind me. Headlights off. Just a shadowed shape 2 cars away. I didn't move. Didn't blink. But I slid my hand toward the duffel bag, shoved the papers in, and turned the ignition. The shape didn't move. I drove away without checking twice. That night, I parked 3 blocks from my apartment, carried the duffel through the alley, and entered from the back. I left all the lights off and pulled the blinds shut. I checked every window, every vent. I didn't sleep. Not even for a second. At 4:14 a.m., my phone rang. Unknown number. I let it ring to voicemail. A message came through. I hesitated, then hit play. It was Darcy. Her voice was quiet, almost trembling. David, I know you think you figured it out. But whatever you found, it's not what you think. You're in danger. You don't understand the kind of people my father was involved with. That file. You weren't supposed to see it. Please, if you have it, destroy it. I listened to that message 3 times. Then I listened again. She sounded afraid. And Darcy was never afraid. So the question was, what was she scared of? Me? Or something even worse? I didn't destroy the file. Of course I didn't. But I did what any man who's been gaslit, cheated on, and left in the wreckage of a billionaire's paranoia would do. I drove to Crowbridge Lake with a trunk full of questions and one dangerously heavy duffel bag. The road was long, winding, and mostly empty. The kind of forgotten stretch of New England that still had phone booths and rusty mailboxes shaped like cows. It was foggy that morning, almost theatrical. Like the air itself didn't want me to see too much. As I passed the crumbling "Welcome to Crowbridge" sign, I felt something tighten in my chest. Not fear exactly. Not yet. But the first breath before the plunge. Crowbridge wasn't a town. It was a whisper. 3 streets, 1 gas station, a church that doubled as a community hall, and a sheriff's office that looked like it hadn't seen a working printer since 1998. I didn't stop. I followed the lake signs, winding down to a wooded stretch that ended in a gravel lot. I parked facing the water. The lake was dead silent. Not peaceful, hollow, as if it remembered something it didn't want to share. I found the dock from the photo. Same crooked railing. Same old iron rings embedded in the wood. I walked to the end and just stood there, watching the ripples, trying to imagine Darcy as a teenager, standing exactly where I was, watching something, or someone, disappear beneath that surface. I didn't have much to go on. No names, no dates, just fragments from Clinton's stash. But I had a theory. If someone went missing here in 2008, especially a minor, there had to be a record. Even if it was sealed, someone would remember. And small towns like this, they never forget the dark stories. So I drove into town and found the one place guaranteed to know everything no one talks about. A bait-and-tackle/diner hybrid run by an elderly woman named Maureen. Her name tag read Mo, but the way she watched me said cop radar. I ordered coffee I didn't want and made conversation I barely understood. Then I mentioned Crowbridge Lake. Summer of 2008. Disappearance. No details. Just curiosity. She went quiet. Not annoyed. Not suspicious. Just still. After a long sip from her mug, she finally said, "You're not from here. And you're digging in a place that doesn't like to be dug." I told her I wasn't press. I wasn't law enforcement. I was just involved. She leaned in. I remember that summer. We all do. Boy went missing. Never found. Just vanished. Cops came, then left. No search parties. No flyers. Parents moved 2 weeks later. Whole thing got swept. Like someone upstairs wanted it gone. I asked if the boy's name was ever public. She shook her head. Not officially, but folks whispered it. Leo McKinnon. Lived in a trailer park off Route 6. Quiet kid. Had a crush on some rich girl who came up for the summer. My blood ran cold. Rich girl. Summer visit. No search. No justice. I asked if she had a yearbook. She didn't. But she gave me the name of someone who might. Back in the car, I Googled Leo McKinnon. Nothing. No obituaries. No missing posters. No record. I tried forums, reverse image sites, social media archives. The only trace of that name online was an old Flickr account with 2 photos uploaded in 2007. One was of the lake. The other? A blurry photo of a girl sitting on a dock. Her head turned away. But I'd know that bun anywhere. I'd know that posture. That shoulder scar. It was Darcy. I stared at that photo for a long time. Everything inside me was cracking. All the years we spent together. The laughter, the trips, the secrets she shared, the ones I thought she'd buried. None of it matched the version of her in that picture. Eventually, I drove back to the motel I'd checked into under a fake name. I spread out the files on the bed and started drawing connections. Clinton had known. He had watched her closely, kept tabs, monitored her devices, recovered things she thought were lost forever. And he made me, of all people, the guardian of that truth. But why? Why me? That's when I found the last document, one I'd somehow skipped. A notarized statement, dated the day before Clinton's death. A single paragraph, handwritten. If you're reading this, then you are in possession of material that puts you at risk. My daughter is not who she pretends to be. I do not trust the justice system. I trust leverage. David Rutherford has always been weak, but weakness is often overlooked. And overlooked people survive. My phone buzzed again. Unknown number. This time, I answered. Before I could speak, the voice on the other end said, "You need to leave Crowbridge now. They know you found the lake." Click. No name. No repeat. No time to breathe. And somewhere outside my motel window, a car engine started, slow, deliberate, waiting. I didn't run. I should have. But when you're deep enough in the current, your instincts don't tell you to swim to shore. They tell you to dive deeper and find the bottom. So instead of packing up and leaving Crowbridge that night, I waited. I turned off the motel lights. I slid the chair under the door handle. I sat on the floor with the duffel bag in my lap like it was a shield, and I waited for the knock. But it never came. Just the sound of a car idling outside my window for exactly 14 minutes before it pulled away, slow and quiet. As if it wasn't leaving, just circling. The next morning, I checked out and drove to the county archive office in nearby Elmsbridge. I gave them a fake name, said I was working on a local history piece about the summer of 2008. I requested school records, sheriff logs, anything related to a juvenile disappearance. They said records from that period were sealed. But as the clerk turned around to file my denial, a man seated by the vending machine caught my eye. He was staring at me, not casually, not curiously, intentionally. His left ear looked like it had been melted and reformed, like it had once been pressed against something very hot and very unforgiving. He stood up slowly, walked over, and without introducing himself, whispered, "You're not from Crowbridge. Which means you're here for the girl or the lake." I froze. My heart slammed. Before I could respond, he handed me a small folded piece of newspaper. Page 6. Bottom corner. Read it somewhere private. And if anyone asks, you came here for hiking maps. Then he walked out. No name. No eye contact. Just gone. I stood there in stunned silence, clutching the paper. I bought a tourist map for show, then left the building, hands sweating. I didn't open the paper until I was at a gas station 2 towns over. It was an old local newspaper, printed in July 2008. Page 6, bottom corner, just like he said. A tiny article, only a few inches of text. No photo, no headline. Just a cold, sterile paragraph. The body of a teenage boy was recovered from Crowbridge Lake Tuesday morning. Authorities have not released the identity. Investigation is ongoing. Sources indicate no foul play suspected. That was it. No name, no age, no family quote. Just a ghost of a tragedy. But someone had underlined a phrase in blue ink. No foul play suspected. Next to it, scribbled in small, sharp handwriting. Because they didn't bother asking her. I felt sick. I wanted to rip the paper in half, burn it, pretend I never saw it. But I kept reading, and that's when I noticed a stamp, faded, red, partially smudged. A library stamp. Elmsbridge Community Branch. Basement Archive. I drove back immediately, circled 3 times to make sure I wasn't followed, then walked straight to the library. It was almost empty, just a young woman at the front desk and a man asleep in a reading chair. I made my way downstairs, to the records room. Dust, silence, and the smell of cardboard and mildew. The past, rotting slowly in the dark. There were rows of microfilm, school records, old police newsletters, and behind a half-broken cabinet door, I found a manila folder labeled McKinnon, L. Incident Notes. I couldn't believe it was just sitting there. Forgotten. Or maybe hidden in plain sight. Inside were 3 pages. Page 1 was a printed incident report. Name, Leo McKinnon. Date of birth, August 11th, 1993. Age at incident, 14. Cause of death, drowning. Witness, Darcy Barrow. My hands trembled. The report noted that Darcy had been found wandering the shoreline barefoot, with scratches on her arms and mud under her fingernails. She had reportedly said Leo slipped off the dock, but an officer had written a note in the margin. No attempt to call for help. No CPR. Waiting alone. The second page was a child services report, sealed, but clearly copied before it disappeared from the system. The summary was chilling. Subject shows signs of dissociation, emotional detachment, consistent deflection, exhibits rehearsed grief, lacks trauma indicators. Recommendation, continued monitoring. Note, family counsel advised full silence due to financial exposure. Sealed under Juvenile Protection Statute 44A. And the third page, the last, was an email. Printed, not digital. From Clinton Barrow. Sent to a former prosecutor. Short. Cold. I expect this file to disappear. Permanently. You know what's at stake. No signature. Just initials, CB. I sat on the floor of that archive room for what felt like hours, surrounded by ghosts. By the time I left, it was dark. I started to feel watched again. Every set of headlights behind me felt like a threat. Every glance in the gas station a warning. When I got back to my apartment later that night, the lock was broken. Not busted. Not forced. Picked. I stepped inside and found the duffel bag exactly where I left it, but one folder was gone. The one containing the photo of Darcy at the lake. Nothing else was touched. Not my laptop. Not the cash in the drawer. Not the bottle of painkillers I'd been using to sleep. Only that folder. Someone had been inside. They didn't want me dead. Not yet. They just wanted to remind me that I was on a leash, and they could yank it whenever they wanted. It took me until morning to realize that I'd stopped being afraid of Darcy and started being afraid of what she belonged to. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on the edge of the tub with the shower running cold just to stay awake. Every creak in the hallway, every buzz of my phone, every shadow in the window sent adrenaline flooding through me. But none of them came back. They didn't need to. They'd already left their message. We're inside whenever we want to be. By noon, I was back on the road. I had one name. The only real lead I hadn't touched yet, the man with the burned ear. I had no address, no last name, but I had something better, a town small enough that people still talk to each other. And the library clerk who watched him hand me that newspaper was now my only shot. So I returned to the Elmsbridge branch, tried not to look like a lunatic, and waited until the front desk cleared out. When the clerk looked up, a guy maybe mid-20s, unbothered, probably bored out of his mind. I said, I need to know who he was. He blinked at me. Who? Guy with the ear. Burned. Sat by the vending machines. Gave me the Crowbridge article. His eyes narrowed. He leaned back, arms folded. You're not a cop? No. You press? No. Then you're either in trouble or about to be. I didn't answer. After a long silence, he sighed, turned around, and scribbled a name and number on a post-it. He's off the grid. Lives near the river. Doesn't trust phones. You want him to talk to you, bring him something sweet. Jelly donuts. Not cream-filled. He hates those. I stared at the note. No address. Just a coordinate range and the name Nate Halder. I spent the next 2 hours off pavement, driving through forgotten roads, dodging potholes and deer, until I reached a crooked mailbox hanging off a nail. The trailer behind it looked like it had been dropped there from the sky and never recovered. No visible electricity. No internet. No vehicle. Just a faint trail of smoke coming from a crooked stovepipe. I knocked. Nothing. I knocked again. Then I placed the jelly donuts on the porch rail and waited. 10 minutes passed before the door opened. He stepped out, barefoot, eyes sunken, beard gray and wild. The burn on the left side of his head had healed badly, like melted wax frozen in place. You took the files, he said. I didn't ask how he knew. I just nodded. He looked me up and down like someone checking if a fish was worth cleaning. You think this is about your wife? He said flatly. It's not. What is it about then? Survival. I waited. He motioned me inside. The trailer was dim, but neat. Bookshelves made from crates. Maps pinned to the wall with thumbtacks. A rotary phone nailed to a board and half-gutted. He didn't offer me a seat, just lit a cigarette and pointed at the wall. Crowbridge wasn't the only incident. That was just the first they didn't bury well enough. You think Clinton Barrow was powerful? You think he built that empire by bottling spring water? No, he was laundering guilt. His money came from silence. I stepped closer to the wall. It was covered in articles, photos, redacted reports. A web of tragedy and convenience. Accidents that didn't match witness reports. Settlements sealed under obscure state clauses. Suicide notes with identical phrasing. Entire families who'd moved away overnight. And Darcy's name showed up 4 times. Always in the background. Always just out of reach. A guest. A niece. A tutor. Never the focus. Just a shadow at the edge of something awful. She's a symptom, Nate said, watching me. Not the disease. I turned to him. Then what is? He pointed at a symbol drawn on a faded map. 3 overlapping rings, each with a dot in the center. I don't know the name, but I know what they do. They take broken kids from powerful families and turn them into vessels. They train them, condition them, and when they turn 18, they vanish from records. Reappear wearing new faces, new names, controlling old empires. Barrow was trying to shut it down from the inside. That's what the inheritance really was, a landmine. A test. If she touched it, the failsafe triggered. And you, poor bastard, are the failsafe. I couldn't speak. He handed me an envelope. Thick, unsealed. Inside was a photo of a man in his 50s. Balding. Square jaw. Eyes like Darcy's. He stood in front of a small private plane. His name's Franklin Wren. He was supposed to die in 2003. Car crash. But look, photos dated 2011. 7 years after his death certificate. You know who took the photo? I shook my head. Clinton Barrow. That's the man who recruited Darcy's mother. My throat was dry. She didn't marry you because she loved you, Nate said. She married you because Clinton wanted someone normal, boring, unmonitored, someone they wouldn't expect to leave a key with. That was the moment I realized. I had never been the victim. I'd been the control variable, the clean slate, the outsider, the only person in Darcy's life that wasn't bought, trained, or compromised. And now, I was the only thing standing between her and $379 million, and whoever else was pulling the strings behind it. I stood up. If they're watching me, I can't go back. You can't go forward either, Nate said. Not unless you're willing to burn down what they built. He handed me a folder, blank on the outside. Inside was a single USB. What's on it? The rest of the files Clinton didn't trust to paper. Names, transfers, photos, passwords. It's what they killed him over. My hands shook as I closed the folder. Nate took a final drag of his cigarette, exhaled through his nose, and said, "You weren't supposed to survive this story. But now that you have, it's yours." 3 weeks later, I walked into a federal building in D.C. with a fake name, a fake USB, and the real one duct-taped under my sleeve. Everything Nate had given me, every account, transaction, photo, login, private island purchase, and redacted confession, was now backed up 6 times, encrypted, and buried behind a string of digital dead man switches. I didn't sleep much. Still don't, really. But I wasn't shaking anymore. After leaving Nate's, I didn't go home. I vanished. Ditched my phone. Changed my name on rideshare apps. Paid in cash. Wrote down passwords on napkins. I went underground with a single goal. Do the one thing none of them ever saw coming. Tell the truth. Not to the press. Not to Reddit. Not to some flashy YouTuber or fringe documentary filmmaker. I went to the Office of Special Investigations, the only branch with teeth sharp enough to bite billionaires, and I handed them everything. And then I waited. At first, they didn't believe me. Of course not. I was a nobody with a duffel bag full of accusations and a dead billionaire's voice on a USB stick. But once they started checking what I gave them, once they cross-referenced dates and names and surveillance footage that had gone missing from state evidence lockers, it started to shift. The temperature in the room changed. They put me in a witness protection program under temporary review. I was relocated, given a new identity, and told to stay quiet. But the silence didn't last long. 3 names from Clinton's second will were leaked anonymously to an oversight committee. 6 off-the-books contracts tied to federal lobbying money were exposed and discredited. And then came the big one, a class action lawsuit filed by the families of 3 children who went missing under sealed juvenile investigations tied to Barrow family properties. None of it led directly to Darcy. She had vanished like smoke. Until the postcard arrived. It was postmarked from Iceland. Blank on the front except for a photo of the northern lights and a handwritten message on the back. "You didn't burn me, David. You freed me. Thank you. D." I didn't know what to make of it. I still don't. Was it a trap? A genuine goodbye? An olive branch from someone who had finally been cut loose from a machine she couldn't escape? Or maybe it was her final move, giving up the money, the inheritance, the empire, and walking into anonymity. Something she'd never been allowed to have. Something Clinton himself had denied her by trying to control her even from the grave. The $379 million? Frozen. Transferred into a charitable foundation under investigation, with temporary oversight by a neutral legal team. As executor of the second will, I was offered an advisory role, which I declined. I didn't want the money. I didn't want the spotlight. I didn't want revenge. I just wanted a life back. And slowly, painfully, I started building one. My name isn't David Rutherford anymore. I live in a smaller town now, one where the lake is just a lake, not a graveyard. I work with stage crews again. Small shows. Community theaters. Just last week, I helped rig the lights for a local production of Death of a Salesman. Poetic, I guess. I adopted a dog. His name is Button. He doesn't care about conspiracies, or sealed case files, or inheritance clauses. He just wants me to throw the damn ball. I see a therapist. I cook. I go for walks. Some days I feel like a ghost. But most days, I feel like someone who survived something few people ever do. The full weight of a powerful lie, and came out clean. The truth didn't make me rich. It didn't make me famous. It didn't win me back the years I lost, or the love I thought I had. But it gave me something else. It gave me peace. And after everything, That's worth more than $379 million.